I was taken unawares and felt compelled to share my experience because I was informed that my reaction was somewhat excessive after I was deceived and treated with disdain. I sought to comprehend why some women were so untrustworthy. My wife demonstrated that she lacked fidelity, despite my efforts to maintain her contentment. Nir and my wife were married 6 years ago, and we enjoyed a positive dynamic from the outset. I was responsible for managing the accounts at my company, while my wife was a nurse. I met her, rented a suitable residence, and were not in any significant debt. We were adept at managing our finances, so spending was not an issue. We communicated effectively, collaborated well, and were able to engage in physical intimacy at night because she was physically attractive and maintained her appearance. Our family had a positive relationship, and I and her brother Jacob were close. He worked as the custodian at the hospital she worked at, due to their mother's influence. She was protective of her younger brother. My wife was an independent woman who was capable of thinking for herself. She exuded confidence and demanded respect from me and Jacob. We did not have children, but I believed that if we did, she would serve as an excellent role model. However, one issue was that she surrounded herself with toxic friends. The way they spoke about each other made me feel like they were more like rivals than anything else. They engaged in a week-long series of disputes, during which they would often claim that they were sisters. In addition to these disagreements, they would frequently engage in heated arguments, particularly when under the influence of alcohol. It was not uncommon for them to have a falling out, only to reconcile the following week, when they would embark on a girls' trip. I was informed that these women engaged in secret competition with one another, which I initially perceived as a typical aspect of their dynamic. While it could be frustrating, I chose to view it as a trade-off between the positive and negative aspects of their relationship. I had assumed that the behavior was typical of the 5 individuals in question. However, an affair occurred when one of the women, Erica, was about to get married. Prior to the marriage, it was not uncommon for the women to engage in uninhibited behavior. Consequently, my wife and her friends decided to throw Erica a party at a hotel. I was aware that they would be out all night, so I did not wait up for her. A few days after the wedding, I was preparing to shower when I heard at the time. I was uncertain as to the nature of the sound, so I simply proceeded to shower. Upon emerging from the shower, I observed that I had received 6 missed calls from the same number. This struck me as peculiar, so I chose not to call the individual back, as I was unsure of their identity. When I proceeded to my living room, the number once again called, and, despite being unfamiliar with the number, I decided to answer. However, upon doing so, I was met with silence. I was initially unaware of any background noise, apart from the sound of a female voice conversing with a male individual. After repeating the greeting on 3 occasions, I terminated the call. However, the caller subsequently contacted me again, and I promptly answered the phone. This time, the female voice responded, and I realized that the caller was one of my wife's acquaintances. I inquired about the purpose of the call and was informed by the acquaintance, who I shall refer to as Jasmine, that she had been informed by my wife that I had been unfaithful at a social gathering. Despite the evident distress, I maintained that she was mistaken. She asserted that she was aware of the incident and had recorded it as evidence. I inquired about the specifics of her allegations. She proceeded to recount the events that transpired at Erica's party. It transpired that the party organizers had hired male dancers to perform for the guests. My wife was particularly friendly with one of the dancers, who persistently sought her attention. He had crossed the line by initiating physical contact with her. I was incredulous. Despite my initial skepticism, I was compelled to consider the possibility that Jasmine's account might contain some truth. After a brief pause, she suggested that she would send me the evidence she claimed to have. I requested that she do so, and she agreed, stating that she would send it to my phone. After approximately 5 minutes, Jasmine sent me 4 video files. Upon viewing them, I was overcome with emotion, realizing that I had finally obtained tangible proof of my suspicions. I immediately called Jasmine to confirm the veracity of the evidence. I informed her that I had indeed obtained the evidence she requested. However, I was still visibly distressed, and she proceeded to insult my wife once more and reiterate her previous assertion of regret for her actions. I inquired as to why she would engage in such deceitful behavior towards an individual she had previously identified as her sister. She did not provide a direct response but instead labeled my wife and her associates as hypocritical and insincere. She also accused them of being untruthful. I then asked how she had obtained my contact information. She reminded me that my wife had called her from my phone to request directions. At a dinner party she had at a restaurant, she said she was done being their friend and accused Erica of engaging in similarly questionable behavior. Jasmine advised me to speak with my wife about the matter, but I informed her that she was at another friend's house at the time. I was emotionally distraught, aware that I had to confront her. The videos I received were 4 in number and depicted my wife in the company of another man. I was uncertain about the future and the implications of this information. I had never trusted these parties, but I had not anticipated that this would happen to me. I am not even invited to these events when my wife returns home. I immediately confronted her upon her arrival. I inquired about her well-being, and she replied that she was tired but in good spirits. I informed her that I had not inquired about Erica's party or whether she had enjoyed herself. She appeared slightly taken aback, but she replied that everything was fine. I then relayed to her Jasmine's assertion that she had a pleasant time. Furthermore, she informed me that she had recorded the incident and would show me the footage at a later point in time. She appeared visibly distressed and inquired about the nature of my conversation. I proceeded to present her with the video footage of her and the male individual engaging in sexual intercourse on the night in question. Initially, her jaw dropped, and she subsequently screamed in disbelief at the sight before her. She implored me not to abandon her and asserted that Jasmine had initiated the sexual encounter with my wife because my wife had supplanted her as one of Erica's bridesmaids. She further disclosed that Erica and she had engaged in a heated discussion regarding this matter. Furthermore, Erica invited her from the ceremony. Upon hearing this, I could comprehend why Jasmine was enraged, yet I did not anticipate such an extreme response. Nevertheless, it was irrelevant to me because I had already informed her of my intention to divorce. Throughout the divorce proceedings, both of our families urged us to reconcile. I was even told that, despite her actions being inappropriate, it was a special night for them, and I was not expected to be aware of it. I informed them that I was aware of the circumstances. To be for the bride, and even if she was, I would not have remained with her. I was incredulous that my wife was engaging in such behavior with this individual, particularly in a public setting after finally obtaining a divorce. I was unable to disengage from the situation. I reached out to other dancers and inquired about their experiences with women. I even posed the question to women themselves. The responses I received indicated that while some women had engaged in similar activities for financial compensation, it was not a common practice. The male dancers I spoke with reported that they frequently encountered women who were interested in such arrangements. One individual indicated that, at the outset, the situation was not as it is presented here. However, as time passed, women began to request such encounters, and it became the norm. When I shared this information with my friends, they advised me that it was unethical and that I should cease communication with this person. I am uncertain as to the appropriate course of action, but I do not perceive any wrongdoing in my own conduct. I was simply unable to dislodge the images from my mind, particularly when the man was aware that the encounter was being surreptitiously recorded. My wife resides in her own apartment in close proximity to her place of employment. I used to see her family on a somewhat regular basis, and they still requested that I forgive her due to the circumstances. However, I am unable to do so. I am reluctant to admit this, but Jasmine was correct in her assessment of my ex-wife. The wife was a fictitious friend, as was her affectionate attachment. She now states that she has no regrets. I have been informed that the second story is that the fiancé had sexual relations with a colleague of hers. I was engaged to her for 6 months after 3 years of dating, and I finally terminated the engagement last week. She is employed by a large financial institution and is typically absent from the house. Until late at night, I did not believe that anything untoward was occurring because I was aware of the nature of her work. This was her routine throughout the duration of our engagement. However, approximately 1 month ago, her behavior began to change. She was returning home at a late hour, probably around midnight, and still getting up at 6. I found this behavior somewhat peculiar, as there had been no change in her job title and, in the past, she rarely had to stay that late for work. Additionally, when I did see her around the house, she seemed disinterested in talking and was glued to her phone. This was highly unusual behavior. While I did not have concrete evidence, I began to suspect something was amiss. Finally, just a week ago, she returned around midnight. I inquired as to her whereabouts, and it became immediately apparent that she had been consuming alcohol. She provided a story in which her boss had asked her to attend a late dinner, but the narrative was riddled with inconsistencies. At this juncture, I was convinced that something untoward was occurring. After she retired for the night, I accessed her mobile phone and discovered that she had been texting a colleague about going on dates and concealing information from me. There were also other suspicious activities. I demanded an explanation for her infidelity. She asserted that she was no longer interested in our sexual relationship and sought stimulation elsewhere. This revelation was profoundly distressing. I requested that she leave and retrieved the ring, effectively ending our marriage. I am uncertain about the extent of the emotional toll this will have on me. However, I am reassured that we will not face legal challenges as a result of this decision. In the future, I am attempting to identify any positive aspects of this situation. However, I still experience distress from the explanation provided by my partner regarding her desire to engage in extramarital relationships. Additionally, I have yet to receive a comprehensive explanation regarding why our sexual intimacy was perceived as lacking excitement. I have devoted several years to studying the Kama Sutra and Tantra, and I have developed a range of techniques that I believe are effective. The majority of the techniques I have described are quite advanced. Typically, I am able to reach the G-spot. I am adept at identifying when I am mounted from the rear and taking wide squats in, and I am also capable of performing a frog-style maneuver from an inverted position, utilizing my hips. Additionally, I have developed proficiency in manual stimulation due to my experience with the guitar. My oral skills are also well honed. In summary, I have devoted significant time and effort to developing these abilities. It is unclear whether the aforementioned individual possessed superior skills or not, but it is distressing to consider the potential loss of our prospective marital union. Given the immaturity of her social media posts, it is unsurprising that she has now moved on to a new partner. It is only a matter of time before she does the same to him. While there has been a slight improvement in my emotional state, I am still processing the situation. I am experiencing a degree of emotional distress, as I am unable to discuss my feelings with anyone. If anyone has been in a similar situation, I would be grateful if you could provide some insight into how I should proceed.